Hey y'all, welcome to Alliecat Customs. Are you trying to rebuild a rear end and you need to be able to pull your pinion bearing and carrier bearings off to reset the shim stack after your initial setup? Well, I got the puller for you, and that is this puller right here from Yukon Gear. So I'm gonna show y'all how to use it and see how well it works on pulling all the bearings off, and if all of them will live when they pull them off. So y'all stick around. All right, y'all, so if y'all are building y'all's tool selection up to start building rear ends, and you're trying to get into where you can build more than just 1 or 2 rear ends in a lifetime, it might be a really great investment to step up and buy a good bearing puller. This is so you can pull the carrier bearings as well as the pinion bearings off. There's a few different ways that people remove the carrier bearings and pinion bearings, and I've done it a bunch of different ways. You can even go as far as using a die grinder and a cutoff wheel or something to actually cut the bearing free from the carrier and stuff like that. And there's also this kind of bearing puller, which is the breaker of dreams. And if you actually watch the video where I tore this 10 bolt apart and found that the setup bearing was still inside the pinion gear after he did his final assembly, it's because he used that kind of puller and actually exploded his final pinion bearing, his actual one he's going to use, and had to use a setup bearing to get it out of the shop. And he just ran it until I got a hold of it. So those are really, really hard and really bad on bearings. You don't usually get to be able to reuse a bearing. But this kind of puller here, you can remove bearings safely and be able to reuse them. So I'm gonna show you how I use it to get these old carrier bearings off so I can press on the new ones. And when I get the pinion back out of the rear end, unless it has a really great pattern right off the bat, which you never know, I'll be pulling that pinion bearing off so I can reuse it with a new shim stack so I can finish setting this rear end up. So I'm about to find the right adapters. And this is the actual clamshell adapters that will grab this. And this is the actual puller itself. So this will go inside the clamshell, between the bearing and the clamshell, to where you can pull it off. And this is a step spacer, and it has various different sizes to where you can actually set it into place and be able to have a spacer so your screw jack will work to where you can pull the bearing off. So about to set up, start pulling it out now. All right, so first off, to remove carrier bearings, I'm using the step spacer. You find the right size step to where it fits. And this one here is it's got some slack in it. It won't fit, and as you can see, it's stepped up, so you can know that one don't work. So I'll turn it to the other side right here. And that just is a square fit to where the carrier bearing will slide over. And just to make sure, here's the new carrier bearing. So you know that it will slide over that, so you know that it'll fit. So that spacer goes into place here. And then to find the correct clamshell. So this is the clamshell that will be actually capturing the bearing to pull it off. And as you can see, you have 2 different size holes in your clamshell here. So you can have for various different sizes of bearings, and it just fits under the clamshell here, and it catches the race. So this one here is just a hair, it's just a hair too tight. So I'll go with one size up, which is going to be the black one, and that's going to catch that. But the neat part of this puller especially is that it uses the bearing race to capture the cage, so that everything becomes structurally more sound, so you can pull it off, but to pull the bearing off and be safer about it, so the bearing is actually going to be reusable. So you put the race on. All right, so this is the puller, and these are 2 adjustable nuts that adjust to apply pressure to the bearing race and to the clamshell. So it sits down on the bearing itself, and you run this down until it makes contact, and then you put your clamshell into place and make it to where you raise this up to where it makes contact. Alrighty, put the other side on. And then you put your locking collar on the outside. You tighten this down. Don't have to be incredibly tight. It just has to make sure everything stays nice and tight. And then use your impact and run the screw jack down, and the whole thing will pull up. Alrighty. Alrighty, and as we see, pull the clamshell off. Ta-da! Everything looks just fine. This bearing could be reused. Perfect. All right, flip it over and do the other side. Ta-da! right, so now that I got both bearings removed off of this carrier, we'll get the new bearings pressed into place. Then I'm gonna go ahead and set the rear end up and run a pattern and see if I need to remove the pinion. And if I do, I'll be using this bearing puller to remove it also. So let's dive in. All right, y'all, so I've done my initial setup on this rear end, and I've found that I need to remove 5 thou from the shim stack thickness behind the pinion bearing here. So I'll be using this pinion bearing puller on this setup, and this is where this style pinion bearing puller really shines, is being able to remove a bearing like this and be able to reuse it. So that's what we're going to do right now, is show you how I get this bearing pulled off and see just how nice it is and if it's reusable. So I'm about to set it up, and like I say, again, you see the 2 halves here, and they have 2 different size pieces on them. So you find the right size that fits around your the right size clamshells that fit around your bearing. So I'm going to take this, and it captures on the back of the bearing cage, and like that's too big, it won't work. So you flip it over, and you find that this clamps and around the bearing cage like this, so it'll work just like that. And both sides will fit, and they both come together. So you can see that both sides are coming together. All right, so take these back apart and put your pinion outer race on. Now the outer race that goes with this bearing is actually pressed into the housing. So I'm using the old bearing race. This race is in really good shape. It just has some age and wear on the surface. There's no gouging, no scored marks or anything like that that can damage the actual bearing. So I'm going to be using this as the safety device. So it goes on just like that, sits on here, and then I capture the bearing cage with the clamshells. And so the whole thing goes together, will go together just like that on it. All right, so that's how it goes back together with the cage on. But you take this, this is the actual puller part here, and you will screw this down to where it sits onto the all right, yeah, so I forgot to screw the jack shaft back out of the puller here from when I used it with the carrier bearing. So make sure you have it out far enough so that it works with the pinion, and very gently set it over your pinion shaft and have it seated flush on your outer pinion bearing race. And then you can set the clamshells on, and the clamshells are going to capture the bearing cage. And as you can see right here, I need to screw this part here down. There, going backwards. There we go. See if that's enough. All right, that's good and snug like that. Now, you set the clamshell holder on there. Get it tight. Tighten the adjuster. All right, everything's good here. Just screw this down and it'll pull the bearing off. Let me get my impact. Alrighty. Get this pulled off. Wow, they got really tight. Oh wow. I know exactly what I did wrong. Instead of catching the cage, this bad boy actually caught the retainer. That's why it stretched the way it did. That's why it all was tight. I was wondering what was going on, but get this, there you go. All right, so there's no damage to the bearing. It just wedged onto the back of the actual bearing cage itself. So there's no, you can see there's no visible damage. No damage to the face of it. No damage anywhere that I can see. Bearing spin's fine. All right. So yeah, and that was my fault. What it was actually done was the size of this wasn't quite exactly right, and instead of catching the cage, which was what I was afraid of actually doing on the carrier bearing, was catching the back of the actual the inner race. That's what I was afraid it was going to catch the lip of that, and that's what it did. That's why I had trouble getting it off. Yeah, but everything looks fine. I just know next time that there's a better size, right size for the pinion on this. So lessons learned, but so far I am very impressed with this. I like it. All right, now that's how you remove the bearings. This is a nice tool and it works really well. Just make sure that you have the right size, because you see what happens if you get it just a hair off and you're actually trying to catch on the retainer or not. That's what it was trying to do, is it was trying to slip off the actual inner bearing race. So, but hey, did the job, it got it moved, and that bearing is reusable. So I call that a win, even though kind of a lucky win, but hey, whatever works. So I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and I hope y'all enjoy this style bearing puller, and I'll leave a link in the description so y'all can find a bearing puller like this. There's several different brands that make pullers like this. Yukon sells a puller like this, so y'all be sure to check that out. And if you're going to be doing mini axles and stuff on your own, this is a huge upgrade, because I absolutely hate trying to deal with setup bearings when I could just use the real bearing. So I'm about to get back to setting this rear end up and see how everything works. Hope y'all enjoyed this video, and I hope y'all enjoy the rest of the build. So see y'all again right here at Alliecat Customs.